No, I don't reckon I've participated in public art performances before. This is my first time, yeah.
As a participant, I don't think so. I don't recall I have been, at least not knowingly.
I have, but I participated in public art performances, but mostly as a member of the faculty at an art school at Cal Arts. So.
So Tunde, when you first thought about your residency here, what was ruminating in your mind? What kind of ideas were you thinking through?
So I had this project called Bullshit, which was basically I created an arbitrary digital token, and I was selling it to people. I think I sold it for $10, I think, per token. And the idea was that you can use this token and you can cash this token in for a real world experience. And the token was sort of designed to be like the digital coins, like Bitcoin in them, and also like a stock too. So like a hybrid between the two. And so I had thought that when I came here that I would explore that some more and sort of like explore the financial system and speculation specifically. But then when I came, I just there was just so much space, like physical space, studio space, also conceptual space to fill that space with something tangible. And I had been thinking through a project for like 3 or 4 years about this futuristic restaurant space in a post-apocalyptic world. And so the evolution of what became the cage dinners and then also the street performance came from that. But it also still tied into the Bullshit, because the Bullshit project then morphed into, that's before I came in, morphed into selling bread for one Bullshit token that was valued at $100. So I sort of like put all those things together, and then this is what the outcome was, but the underlying idea behind the work has always been like economic exclusion and just the complicatedness and the injustice in our global economic capitalist patriarchal white supremacist system. At least that's how Bell Hooks describes it.
So what was it like having your first public performance and then doing a couple more after that?
I felt not obviously, but I felt anxious. So a lot of anxiety going into that, just doing something for the first time, not knowing how I would react.
Yeah, how did you conceive of, why did you want to do performance? Why did you build performance into your practice here?
Right. So I was, a friend of mine asked me this question yesterday, and she asked me like, why did I wear the suit and do this? And I said that every answer is just a rationalization of the fact that I just wanted to do it. Like I wanted to do it, and then every time I did it, there were different things that happened, but those things that happened weren't the reasons why I did it. But then I could use those happenings as rationalization. I could say, for example, which is something that happened yesterday, that if I'm wearing something like this and people ask me questions about what I'm wearing, I don't want to answer those questions in passing. I want to engage with folks because I don't want a transactional conversation, and I could say that is, typical of, in some ways, like a metaphor for the transactional relationships that we all have. I could say that, and that is true. I could also say that once you start engaging people outside of a transactional conversation, while I'm wearing this like absurd suit, that my presence and everything that I represent quickly becomes normalized. So people begin interacting with me as a person, not as a spectacle. I could say that too, and that is also part of it. And obviously, like you've mentioned a couple of times, the durational aspect. So working in the suit and sweating and like being in the sun for hours and all that shit.
Because it was above 90 degrees.
Yeah.
All 3 times you did your performance.
But the way I think about the suit and then the cage is that, there's like a personal story and then there's a public story. And the personal story is like personal. It's like, and the most I can vocalize about or articulate about the personal story for the suit is just like, I wanted to do it. It makes me uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable to think about doing it and to put on this thing and to put on a mask, and it's just really uncomfortable. So, and I wanted to do it.
So can you expand upon the idea behind My Son is Selling Bread in America? Where did that title come from?
Yeah, that came from my mama. So,
and you were describing to her what you were doing.
I was, and I guess the full title would be like, what would my enemies say? My son is selling bread in America. Because my mom supports everything that I do, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't have reservations about everything that I do. So her preference would be that I wasn't selling bread,
yes,
because of the connotation and all that,
yes,
but to subvert that preference and to like reimagine what selling bread in America would be. And then also in the process of telling her about this thing, which she thinks is wild, well, I knew that she owned a bakery when I was younger, so then she revealed that her mother also owned a bakery that did really well when she was growing up. So there's
and
this,
you
like,
found that out?
in talking to her about this. Yeah, and so there are all these connotations with labor, with that, with like that kind of labor that she would rather I didn't attach myself to. So I wanted to even be more forceful about that attachment.
I feel like that's a beautiful homage to the legacy of the laborers in your family, that they were bakers.
Yeah.
And there's something quite beautiful and...
For a time.
Yes.
My mom would never claim that baker status, but yeah, for a time they baked and sold bread. Yeah, but this is definitely, the suit and the cage, these are, to me, or for me anyway, they're for my family in a way.
So the cage dinner was very different from My Son is Selling Bread in America. That was an interactive, durational dinner,
Yeah.
where you had people come and engage around an article that you would send ahead of time, and you would, through a series of quizzes and questions, individual questions and also group querying, you had people kind of hold a mirror up to themselves and kind of think about how they're kind of situated and implicated in this capitalist society.
What we tried to do was create a universe here, and in certain regards mimic maybe some of the harshest, or not harshest, but some of the most visceral parts of the economic system, this sort of like reward, punishment scenarios, isolation and community scenarios and tension and light. So we try to use these specific moments as inflection points to mimic this larger system. Not just talk about the economic system, but also talk about how it impacts us personally. So, I mean, for me, to me, like what could maybe be the most revolutionary part of the dinner for me was the journaling part. That's how I feel, like having
And the journaling part happened at the end,
yeah.
where you had, when people got to be in the cage or outside the cage, and you gave them this writing assignment, this journaling assignment, based on a set of questions.
Our external commitments are part of what I enjoyed in creating the cage dinners.
Well, I have to say, experiencing Tunde and his work is definitely not like taking a walk in a gallery. It's very, very immersive and emotional and challenging. And yet, at the same time, it's very comforting. It's very comforting to know that there are artists working and thinking about these big ideas, because these are places that I would not willingly go, but because I had a chance to meet Tunde and to trust that he would take care of me in the process, it made me feel safe.
These very large topics like macroeconomics, it's not easy to feel. It's not easy to feel like there is something that can be done, and I think also that Tunde didn't intend for there to be personal level action to be taken, because his message is that this is a systemic issue. But you can't help but come out feeling a little sad.
Is able to talk about difficult things in a way that doesn't make you feel, didn't make me feel bad. It made me reflect a lot, but it didn't make me feel bad about myself, which is kind of a common defensive thing I think I would otherwise get into. When we had the dinner on Friday night, and I've told this to Tunde and others, I was thinking about how I and the others were on one side of this steel shelving unit, which sort of mimicked a cage, and enjoying a wonderful meal and talking about capitalism and the dangers of privilege and stuff. Meanwhile, across the way, people are making our food, and they didn't have the luxury of even engaging in the conversation. And that kind of, and I've done that kind of work before too, so I understand what they were doing, but that kind of mimicked the actual experience with the cage structure, where some people were, as part of the exercises, eating inside, others were outside the cages. Some of them were waiting for food, some were eating food. And yet, despite all that, it felt very awkward, and I internalized this normative judgment that I really didn't want to, shouldn't be talking with the people on the other side of the cage during the cage dinners. And so I didn't. And then I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Here I am having a meal with everybody, and none of these concepts are really new to the people eating here, and my reaction probably isn't, my feelings about where I'm sitting and doing right now aren't different from the others. But it was a very profound kind of feeling, more than I feel when I typically go to a restaurant or someplace and eat a meal. And I thought, well, I think it's good to feel that way sometimes.
So what does, I'm going to ask you, what does Alma Lewis mean to you?
It's the place where I got my first panic attack.
What did you say? Say it again.
The place where I got my first panic attack was...
Oh, there you go.
No, I think honestly, I was telling Rick and Carrie this, you know, there's just certain questions that are just going to keep coming back to me. And then there's certain places that I have room to respond to those questions. And those questions are like deeply personal. It's like, how do I want to spend my time? What kind of person do I want to be? But how do I perceive myself? How do I want to interact with the world? How much grace do I want to afford myself? And how do I want to take care of myself? And these are things that the last 3 months are just the 3.5 months rather, the things that I've been experiencing. So to me, the residency it definitely happened here. It definitely happened in the gallery, so in the studio, in the gallery. But a lot of it happened in my apartment, to just being by myself and relating to myself. Yeah, I mean, I think that just like formally, this is an amazing program, obviously. Just on the face of it, are you giving an artist an opportunity to create, giving them a really healthy stipend, and then connecting them with resources in the community. That's amazing. Then I also think that then, you know, the opportunity to like live your life, like the artists to live their life, and to contend with the things that they have to contend with daily. That's also an opportunity that I'm not sure people get often. But yeah, I appreciate the whole spectrum. Yeah. It's not like, I don't want to say, well, like, I'm leaving here transformed, or I came here like this, I'm leaving, but what is happening is that
And I didn't even ask you that.
Yeah,
I don't like to ask people like, how has Alma Lewis transformed, but what does it mean to you? You know?
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't take that out, but the panic attack is real in that,
Yes.
like, I've never had one before, and there was not, and in fact, at that time in the residency, I was still like working towards stuff. Like I hadn't started creating much work. So there's something really significant about being able to listen to myself, or not listen to myself and then have a panic attack or whatever. I'm not sure how they work, but that is, to me, that is part of this. And 3.5 months is a long time. It's also a short time, but it's a long time. Say if you're looking at it from the space of a year, that's like almost like half a year. That's a huge part of my year. And all I have to say is development has been happening. I'm growing. I hope I
Panic attacks, release, yeah, purging. There's spiritual growth.
Yeah, it's been like personally a difficult time, you know, like family and personal like relationship stuff. So it's been a difficult time, but it's also been it's been great. Yeah, it's been great.
Well, thank you, Tunde.
Thank you for having me. Thank you to Camila and Marco and everybody. John, who's not here right now.
I know.
Yeah.